Shoutouts to all my medium fans out there. It is another Eternal deck tech. So, we just got a recent promo. We're about to get a new campaign dropping, so I'm going to be excited to make some more decks very soon where we're going to have a bunch of new cards. But the new promo was quite awesome. I've been very interested to play it, and I did make a deck around it. I've been doing pretty well with it. I've had a really tough time in Eternal recently trying to find a deck that was a suit for me, where I've just been struggling to get a lot of wins together, and this one's been doing really well for me, actually. I've done great with it so far. So this is Deleph. If you haven't seen Deleph, it's Cursed Prophet Deleph, which is a little bit of unfortunate art, but 3-drop, 1/4, unblockable. When it hits the enemy player, she sees a vision of 2 random cards, so you create 2 random cards, you get one, and you give the enemy player the other. So how can we use that to our advantage? Well, obviously, it's just an advantage of itself most of the time because you can pick the card that you believe is best for the board. So obviously that's helpful, but we can also punish it in certain ways too. You could do punishment through things like Maul, which I definitely thought about. So you could be trying to do like Time, Shadow, and Primal and make them have too many cards in their hand and then just deal them a bunch of damage with a card like Maul. Or what I eventually ended up doing, which is Teacher of Humility. It's not that we have to have Teacher to make Deleph good, but it is a nice little synergistic combo here. And that's kind of where I started from with this deck. After that, you have Amaran Stinger, because it really does synergize again with the whole Teacher. Whenever you have one of the Scorpion traps go off, they have to draw an additional card, which means that if you've hit with Teacher already, making them draw the additional card makes it cost 2. And I mean, same thing with Deleph. So those all kind of just gel together. So then, what are we going to do with the rest of the deck? Well, I decided to kind of just go in a blend of 2 different decks almost in a way. So this is a little bit like Xenan Killers, and it's also a little bit like Xenan's Sights, if you haven't seen that. So we have 8 Sights, and actually 9 if you count the one on the market as well. So we have like basically the full suite of Sights that you can have for Xenan. And what we're going to be trying to do is get down some early pressure with Teacher, Stinger, and Deleph. But we can also just keep that pressure up through the mid-game. So we're not really an aggro deck, we're really more of a mid-range deck. And we do that through a bunch of Killer and a bunch of these Sights. The Sights being cards that also give Killer or Charge, so we can kind of just keep things going, right? You get to slam in with Moonstone Vanguards really early, or Worldbearer Behemoth. Worldbearer Behemoth or a Moonstone Vanguard with Charge is huge, because the big downside of a card like Moonstone Vanguard or Worldbearer Behemoth, they're both absolutely fantastic. Like, they're really tough to beat once they attack. And that's really the problem, which is why they're often paired with Killer, right? Because then you get the attack and you get to kill something because they're just huge already. But Praxis Arcanum can solve that problem the other way by just giving it Charge instead. And Xenan Temple solves it the other way, the other way, which is using Xenan Initiation to just have them fight. We also have 4 Xenan Initiations in here as well, just to get those extras. Vara obviously just works as a really good card in lots of situations. It's good for holding things like Xenan Initiation or charging in, but it's also just a house. I mean, it's a 4-drop that everybody in Shadow is playing, and there's really good reason for it. The card is incredibly tough to beat if you can curve it into 4 and then into 5, and etc, etc. Buying it back becomes really disgusting too. We'll get into that in a minute. I'll go into the market a little later. We have Ebon Smuggler in our market, and I'll talk about the market in a second. We have Annihilate and Vara's Favor on top of the Xenan Initiations as kind of early removal, and then Banish helps us get rid of some relics later on. I didn't want a full suite of 4 Banishes. I needed to cut out something somewhere just to have enough power, but Banish is good, but there's not as many relics running around right now. Annihilate clears up most of the bigger problems. This one gets rid of things like Statuary Maiden that we really want to get rid of, so like dual cost cheaper cards. So that's why Banish is still good to have. It might be possible to run something like, instead of that, run like Vara's Choice. Maybe like Deathstrike if you're having more trouble with units. Relics haven't been as big of an issue. I do like that Banish is cheaper than something like Deathstrike, though, which is why I've been running it. Most of the stuff that you want to kill is going to be fairly early. Like I said, something like Statuary Maiden is one of the ones that comes to mind as being just a big issue, right? Card's always obnoxious. After that, we have our market. We've got a little bit of extra fight. We have Twilight Hunt. And then we have some fun things. We have a secret passage so that we've got all of these infiltrates, and we can just get some extra value off of them by just not having them be able to be blocked, right? So we have Teacher or Stinger, or, I mean, honestly, just Moonstone, Vanguard, or Worldbearer Behemoth. As long as you can attack them in, you can get around some other opposing large boards by just making it unblockable and then getting advantage off of it. And when you have to sacrifice it, it doesn't matter that much if you're just killing them. So the sacrifice isn't that big of a deal. And unblockable for a turn for free, like, well, for just one rather, is really, really nice. Obviously, we have a Dark Return, because we didn't have one in the main deck. I just couldn't find a great spot to fit it. It's really, really powerful when something dies that had Killer on it. Like, it's insanely powerful then. Or if you've already, like, infiltrated with a Stinger, and then you get to Dark Return it back and infiltrate again, things like that. But that kind of a setup takes a lot of work, and I don't think that we need that kind of late game value, and we have it by just going to the market. So I decided to just move it into the market instead. I was originally running some in the main deck and then having one of these as a last chance, just to have extra Void Recursion, but I don't mind just having one in the market. There are a lot of people that still run Gavel too, so not having to rely on the actual Void is kind of nice. Then we have Deathstrike, just as an extra way to kill things. It's always nice to have one, like, something dies when you need it out of the market, because there's a lot of times where you might just get stuck facing down one big nasty creature like Horizon or something, and you just have to kill it and you can win the game. Deathstrike does that. Dizo's Office, same kind of thing. I mean, late game value, so it's kind of like a Dark Return, but obviously it can also just kill something immediately, so there's a lot of advantages to Dizo's Office. I mean, card is incredibly powerful if you can stick it. It's just that it's a 7 cost, so it's not something that we really want to main deck here. It's still nice to have later on. Alright, so that's the deck. Obviously, our power base is pretty normal. We've got some Amber Waystones just because we have a lot of time sigils and stuff already. Like, it seems free enough to have in here since we're not running a lot of seats. We're just running 2. We're running 4 crests and 4 banners because we do have, like, decently heavy requirements. Like, we want double shadow for Vara and we want triple time for Worldbearer, but I haven't really had any, you know, influence problems with this deck so far, so pretty good on the power front, I think. It's possible that you can change, like, Vara's favor for Seek Power, but I do like the ability to ping things for 1, and we don't really need too much of that kind of fixing. Alright, so let's get some games going, and I will see you in a moment.